There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues? With capital the heart of their design. When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no, which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print, say that this thing has got to go, and we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
All right. Hello. A couple minutes late, you know. Hey, Nathan. Shout out to the chat. Glad you're here with us, or with me this afternoon. Shout out to Nathan, Iron Time Traveler too. I know you're out there somewhere. I appreciate you spending some time with me this afternoon. If you are just joining us for the first time today, we had our regularly scheduled episode. Jared was back with us today, which is always a treat. And then that will be live on our YouTube, not live, but like available on our YouTube soon. So I will have that and this and this hour. I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about my upcoming book. Jared and I are both creators. We are in different spheres of creation, but I do things on the literary side. I write books. I make documentaries sometimes. I make artwork. Digital artwork primarily is my medium of choice. I'm here, there, and everywhere. I do a lot of things, and he is. If you just enjoyed the theme song for our show, that is Jared. He is immensely talented and likes to go out and entertain people, and he's very popular. He's kind of a big deal if you didn't know. So we're really glad to have him and his creative spirit on the show. Something we definitely appreciate. And we're no promises yet, but we're talking about, we're kicking around some ideas about maybe bringing some more of that into the show, maybe doing a second hour every now and again. So that, where maybe we talk about kind of the arts or just things, so we do our show is, we don't need to be, we're things are pretty bad. So we're we back. Oh, and I just noticed that my thing has his name on it. Come on. Are we back? You guys see me? It wouldn't be an episode of Social Contract without tech problems. And last episode, we didn't have any tech problems. So I guess I'm pushing my luck a little bit here. But anyways, I appreciate you being here. Sometimes it looks weird for me. Yeah, I'm frozen. Yeah, probably. Sometimes it looks weird for me, and then it catches up, and then you guys say there's a problem or no problem or something. So we're just going to push through like we always do. hopefully that'll work itself out a little bit, and it won't be too much of an issue for us going forward. So last week I came on with an extra hour to play the soundtrack that I made for the book. And Jared's not on that soundtrack. Hopefully, we'll be able to collab in the future with something that we're both working on together. But if you watch our show, you know that every episode is a collab for us. So hopefully down the road we'll get to work on something creative again together. But for that soundtrack, and you can watch that video for that soundtrack, that was all commercial stuff that really narrated the book. That's something I started doing on my second book. Where I wanted to also, in some way, tell the story of what was going on through music, and make that touchstone, kind of give you an idea of who and how and what is going on with characters and things like that. Just sort of a little companion thing. And if you have a copy of the book, you can find that in the back. That's in the back matter of everything. So that is printed there, and there is I made a playlist on YouTube that you can go and play that from, and there's the video from last week of it. But because of copyright things, if you can't play the video for some reason, then you can go pull up the playlist. It's already ready to go. So that's fun. So I'm not going to play music this time, but I am going to read a little bit out of the book and fumble through that somewhat. Sometimes I have this like weird thing where it's like I can't read, so I just stop being able to read. So I have, I'll show you this real quick. This is my little library. This is all my books that I've written. This is first one, second one, and then now the new one. This is my whole deal right here in literary. I mean, you can add obviously like a million artworks, and then some movies and stuff like that to the situation. But fun things you can hold in your hand. These are my books. So these are my newest ones. This one is my one about Buster. It's got a banner on it. It's stupid, but this is a painting that I painted. For anyone interested, let me show you. I know it reads backwards, but and you don't like that banner, but that's the style of artwork I do, and I design my own covers. So this is the new one, and again, I know it's backwards, but this is a photograph of mine, and then I did the artwork on it. So that's part of how I do what I do. A lot of writers aren't also artists or designers or editors or that kind of thing. So when they work independently, they have to farm that kind of work out to other people, and to each their own. Especially if you work if you're part of an agency or part of a publishing house, they will do that for you. That's part of that. But for me, and again, why I went the indie route rather than worrying about looking for agencies to represent me or finding a publishing house or doing some kind of hybrid publishing, is because I just happen to have a certain set of skills, so like I can do all these different things, and I just wanted to, I like to control every aspect of production because I want it to come out exactly how I want it to come out. I want it to read exactly how I want it to read. And that could potentially be to my own detriment, because it's like, if you think about these publishing houses, they know what markets, but I'm not necessarily trying to sell you things. Like, I mean, obviously I want you to buy it, but I'm not trying to like get the most like weird shit that's going to attract your attention, and all this and that. And it's like, I want the story to be what the story is. Jared very kindly said before the show, or I guess after the show, before the show, that it's like a movie, and that's kind of how my mind works. You can see it, he could see it being made into a movie, which is obviously like, my ultimate goal. I'd love to see it like a 2 or 3 part miniseries on Apple TV. So I hope that maybe someday, if you guys buy it, and it gets popular enough, I can option it, maybe, or they will option it from me maybe, and then I will not have to be so very extremely unemployed, and I can actually get somewhere on this. But this, to me, is the story. The thing with the Buster story and my first story that I finally was able to market, those are kind of nichey. I understand that those are kind of to a point. Like, if you're not really into Buster Keaton, what do you really care about the last part of his life, right? That was a companion book to the documentary I made about him some years ago. So those two things kind of work together. And yeah, you kind of have to have an interest in you have to have an interest in Buster or silent film or film history or that kind of a thing anyways. Or it's just like, okay, maybe I enjoy this, but like, who really cares? I don't. So I get that. But this one is much more open. It's a horror story at the heart of it. It's a mystery story. There are clues to follow. There are clues in everything. Like, I cannot stress that enough. That is just the way that I wanted it to be, and I will kind of do that throughout all of my writing, even if it's not meant to be a mystery. I, as a writer, don't like to handhold my audience. I tell them what I want them to know, and then I give it to you. And this is something that I see a lot with other very like high level, well known, my shit has been adapted writers. They have a very bad attitude towards their audience. And they lampoon them, they're rude to them, they take them for granted, as I see it. And maybe you get to that point and you just get really tired of people telling you about your stuff. But to me, I think it's the wrong kind of attitude to have, because I see myself as providing a service, for you, something for you to escape with and enjoy for a little while and have a good time. Um, so if you come back to me and be like, oh, I think this character is queer, like, good for you, neat. If you come back to me and like you have like said like, well, I think this is going on when you said this was going on, and that's my belief, like, cool. Like, I like that. Like, if you're like, this is my fan art, I'll be like, yeah, reblog. Like, I'm about that, right? Because I think that this is something that like, when you make something, you either make it for yourself in like completely masturbatory fashion, or you make it for other people. And I want my stuff to go for I want my stuff to be enjoyed by other people. I want there to be an audience for people to enjoy those things and interpret it their own way. If I take 100 of you and stand you in front of a Rothko painting or any painting, you're all going to have different opinions about it, and it might not be what he intended when he's drawing his pretty little squares. So that's kind of where I come from on that. I don't feel like I need to yell at you and tell you, no, this is how I meant it. You're skewing it. You're messing it up. No, I want you to enjoy it however you want to enjoy it. Whether, I know people do book clubs and some people do like role play stuff and fan art, things like that. And I am here for it 100%. I'm also not one of these people who's like so miserly about the cost of it that it's like, don't share it. No, share it. If you bought it, it's yours. Share it. I don't care. Things are really hard out there right now. People can barely afford food in a lot of cases, and they really need something to escape with and have a good time. So if you have a copy and you want to share it with a friend, I don't care. I'm for it. I'm here for it, right? If you can't afford a copy, and I want to make this very clear, if you can't afford a copy, if you can't buy new media right now, get in touch with me. Give me an email, hit me on my blog. Get in touch with me. I'm out here. You can find me. No questions asked. I will send you a copy. It will happen. You can have one. Like, I'm not hung up on that kind of thing. Yeah, I need the money. I for sure need the money, but that's just not the way that I operate in terms of business or life. And that's really like all I want to get through to to you all. I just like, because people are afraid to ask for things. They're afraid it would make them look bad. I'm not going to sit there and give you the third degree or make you fill something out or whatever. I'm just going to get, you ask me, I'll give you one. No questions asked. I don't care if you can't afford one and you just want one. I don't care. It's like, it literally does not matter to me. If you approach me and you ask, you get. Okay. So, Nathan says, I respect that making art that's not contractually bound to monetary obligation, but made for its own merit. That's again what I'm hoping to do. And I think we really are in a neat place. One of the very few good things that like technology and being in the future has provided us is not only do I have the tools at my disposal to control all aspects of publication. I can edit my own work. I can make my own covers. I can design my own covers. I can, here, let me show you something real quick. In my Buster book, I didn't do this in this one because the vibe was a little bit different, but there was something I did in this one. You got to just like find it where you can see it. Visual aid, but I did, okay, you can see it a little bit here. It'll read backwards, but if you look here, that's my handwriting right there. And I did my chapter headings similarly. I could find one. Yeah. Whoop. Should be able to find one. It's a little bit heavy. But if you can see that, let me pull it down a little bit. That's got a little pork pie drawing next to it, and that's my handwriting. So I did some things in that where it's like I was able to put in my own little flourishes. I just used text and Big Bad Wolf, but because it kind of depends on the vibe. So like, but I would not necessarily have the freedom to do that if it was not like me controlling it. So, and I'm also the kind of writer, a lot of writers won't do this, but I will take a hatchet to my work. Like, I don't care. If something is wrong, if it shouldn't go there, if it shouldn't be there, then I will take it out. I might save it for later, somewhere else, like sentimentally, like put it in my notes. But I am always going like if I something's got to go, something's got to go. And I do, like, one of my little quirks as a writer is I will have as I'm going through my first drafts or my first few reviews or something like that, I have a habit of like stating something and then restating it like right after. So I have to watch myself to make sure I haven't done that too much. So that's kind of one of my little quirks that I know that I do. If you find that, speaking of which, this particular story, I have this habit also of working on things for like decades and then not like starting and stopping them and not really being able to get them out when I mean for to get them out. And this story I started in 2005 when I wrote it, and it is now the 20th year. And when I originally wrote it, I wrote it as a screenplay. And if you were like around and cognizant in 2005, like, that makes so much more sense. But now I went the way of nobody reads books and nobody can read anymore. So write a book, right? Makes perfect sense. But that's what I have done. Like, that's really through film and art and everything. I have these other interests, but like, I think writing is my really true calling, and storytelling, and is something I've always been drawn to and want to do as a career. So I hope that, again, that I can persuade you to maybe buy a copy. The digital version is available on Amazon presently. Again, you can get one for me too, but so you can get a cheap digital version, like digital. It's not that expensive. It's $6.99 for digital. Or if you already have Kindle Unlimited, it's not going to cost you anything. And then as you read the pages, I get little bits of money, like literally, like, here's some pennies for you. So that's an option there too. And then physical copies like this one in hardback will be coming out soon. So you will have the opportunity to have something that you can hold on to if that's your steez, which I know a lot of people are not super into digital reading. Some people are with it. Some people, would rather have a thing. And so I get it. Nothing that you really have to, it's just up to you, right? And then even the physical copies are not that expensive. So you can do that. And also, if you are into like, art, like different art and stuff, and not like high art, but like things like, portraits like this, like that kind of stuff, and photos like this. I have a Redbubble shop with almost 1,000 designs in it. And if you're not familiar with Redbubble, you can get anything there, basically, like any manner of clothing or phone cases or throw pillows or blankets or shower curtains, bath mats, mugs, like you can get anything there with designs, but made by independent artists, like myself and whoever else uses the website. So you can do that. And so, little announcement here, as I just put this imagery of the copy, not backwards, but I just put this on in the shop. So like, you could get a tote bag with this on it, or phone case. You can with this one as well. I feel so QVC right now, but that's basically like, I know that there are readers who also like artwork and stuff like that. So you can get that kind of stuff. But I've got portraits there. I've got movie and TV related stuff. My portraits usually are the favorite. I think my Drop Dead Fred portrait is like probably my bestseller, followed, I think, by my Glinda the Good Witch portrait. But I also have other stuff. There's some sort of, there's some absurd word art, like fake bands and stuff like that. I have a design of a band that I made up called Artichode. So it's just dumb shit, So you can find all kinds of stuff there too. And that, again, helps me keep the lights on and keeps this stuff coming at you. So one thing, I'm going to circle back on this real quick because I think it's important. If you look at the cover of this, and you can't see it here because it's very light, which is intentional, but there's some artwork going on in the back here as well, not just the description. And I embed clues about what's going on into everything. And this being a mystery story, there's a lot of clues going on. So sometimes things will not seem significant or not seem to matter, but you can really look at everything as, is it something? Because probably, So even the imagery on the book cover really kind of gives you a little bit of clues as to what's going on. So and as you're reading along, and that kind of makes it hard for me to do a reading. So I'm going to read you the first couple of pages, which maybe are not the most interesting part of the entire book, but I want to read you a couple of the first pages because if I read from anywhere else in the book, even just introducing characters the way that I do, that would kind of give things away, and I don't want to give any surprises away. So let's take a couple of minutes here. One more quick aside. I have This is what you will see when you open the book. And I know that's backwards, but I have these little brands that I made, and I've got 3 of them. I put them out there in PNG form on my blogs and stuff. They're free to anybody to use, but it says 100% human made. And I know that those can be faked, obviously, but this is sort of my guarantee to you that there has been no AI, no falseness used, no no chat GPT played any role whatsoever in this. If you've seen our regular flagship show, you know that we're not against technology, and we do think that there are really positive ways that AI can be used, like in medicine and science and mathematics and things like that, technology, but they're not being used for that. They're being used to cram slop down your throat that everybody hates, and it's horrible. So what you get when you purchase from me is something that is 100% made by a person, me. And I have made the artwork in this case. I've done the formatting, I've done the editing, I've done the writing. You may find, if you find a typo here or there, just let it be some like adorable little cuteness of humanity, because I am a pretty thorough editor. But if something gets by me, that's because I'm not a robot and I'm a person. So I'm not that worried about that. I do the best I can, and I kind of let it be what it is at that point. And it doesn't really hurt my feelings the way it might have, a few years ago before this came around, because oh, it's got to be perfect, or people will know that it's like independent, because back then and even now a little bit, independent work is not really respected against traditional publishing. But for many reasons, I'm against traditional publishing, mostly because I don't want to sell the rights to my work unless it would be for an option for like a film project or something like that, because that's an entirely different medium. But if it was, I don't want to sell their work. I don't want to allow somebody to put their version of a book cover. I don't want somebody to be allowed to make their version of the edits. I want you to see what I want you to see, and then you can take it and interpret it any way that you want to after that point. And especially nowadays, you can't trust them not to use AI. I couldn't make that guarantee to you if I had a traditional publisher, because they would be. They 100% would be. I'm sure that there's hardly any editors at this point or proofreaders that are employed, in the major publishing houses, especially the minor ones who just can't afford to pay workers, so they're trying to grow their businesses. But so the guarantee I can make to you is it is in fact 100% human made. So that's the good thing. Authenticity. Oh, I dropped again. Jeez, lots of fun today. Yeah, reconnect, please. Come on, you can do it. Come on. All right. Sorry about that. I think the frame rate went out again. It's how it is, American internet, right? So let me get to this reading of this real quick before I drop out again. And I'm going to read you the first couple of pages, and then you can. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Anyways, here's what it kind of looks like if you want to see how it's laid out. But I'll read you the first couple of pages, because if I read you something maybe more like action packed or exciting or something like that, that will give some things away. And I'm definitely not trying to do that. Even with like character introductions and things like that, like I really don't want to tell you too much about who and how and what is going on. Okay, so first of all, the synopsis, though, I'll let you in on this. Is okay. So you keep showing the cover. What's it about? Well, the synopsis is: in 1975, a group of college students were murdered in a public library. 10 years later, the son of the lead detective picks up the cold trail and uncovers a mystery more terrifying and deadly than he could have ever imagined. Okay, so you got your kind of your amateur sleuth angle going on. So that's kind of where the mystery part of it. He's got to uncover a mystery. So again, if you heard that, it's set in there are two timelines where it's set in 1975 and 1985. And when I wrote it 20 years ago, that was a lot closer in time to when it is now, because now we are respectively 40 and 50 years removed from that. But if you like reading period pieces, that's going to be really fun for you. So let me fumble my way through this. This is the opening of The Big Bad Wolf. Brady Monroe stared blankly at the 24-year-old calendar from the only gas station around for miles. Stop while you shop, raise gasoline and service station, ice cream, cold drinks. Barely clinging to the ancient stone wall by a strip of peeling yellowed tape and covered in a layer of dirt, the familiar slogan surrounded by red and white checkerboards still showed clearly from the disintegrating paper it was printed on. Lulled by the still autumn air, the smell of soil and freshly turned up pastures surrounding him, the lack of traffic, and sporadic loads of cattle, memories intruded, flickering like a lamp with a short as he stood beside his father's now lifeless workbench. In a slow and reluctant return to reality, he was not sure how long he'd been staring, but for the time there had been peace. It was the only moment of peace he'd known for more than a week, since the dam had unexpectedly burst and life began to come at him in a deluge of restless thoughts, convoluted memories, nightmares, stress, and strain, leaving him with the feeling that his life no longer belonged to him, but to an endless slog of unwanted to-dos as one final insult. A wave of indifference crashed down over him, and he ripped the calendar off the wall, dropped it into the battered metal trash can that stood between him and it, the spell of reminiscence broken. His face twisted into a grimace as the sound of a scratching, a skittering, pierced his ears, and he looked over his shoulder towards some large metal shelves tightly packed with identical file boxes, filling a corner of the room that the light did not reach. He would have to remember to buy some mouse traps. It was that time of year. He turned his attention back to the workbench, unable to tune out the sound as it grew louder and more persistent. Rat traps, he noted. He scanned the vast array of repurposed jam jars, coffee cans, faded plastic butter tubs, and Christmas cookie tins filled with various assortments of nuts, bolts, washers, drill bits, scraps of sandpaper, obsolete keys, screws, and plumbing fittings, a lifetime's worth of junk never actually finding their way into use. Each time he selected a container, revealed the contents, throwing out what he did not want to keep, and consolidating what he did, another container seemed to sprout up in its place while he wasn't looking. With a deep sigh of defeat, the nagging pain in his lower back, neck, and knees reminded him that at the end of this long day, he would not be able to finish this work that evening, or in a series of evenings, and it was time to head home. The sorting of the single room seemed impossible, but the thought of taking on an entire house was insurmountable. It was certainly not something he had planned to fit into his already tight schedule. But like the iceberg that burst through the hull of the Titanic, it was here now. He balled up his fists and pressed them into the small of his back, stretching and yawning, scanning the room once more for anything to be packed into his trailer and taken to his own home an hour's drive away. A drive that he was not looking forward to making, but refused to stay over for the night, even though it would have greatly eased his burden. It made little difference, he resigned. The drive would have no impact on the imminence of another sleepless night, and if he wasn't going to sleep, he may as well make good use of his now thinly stretched time. An irritating beep from the alarm on his watch sounded. He pulled his wrist up to his face, squinted hard at the tiny digital display. It was 9 p.m., and he couldn't even remember what he set it for. It was a new watch, and he wasn't yet familiar with its intricacies as he fumblingly pressed every tiny button to silence it. He didn't ultimately know what he'd done to get the beeping to stop, but felt like he'd just disabled a bomb when the unnerving shrill was finally quieted. Letting out his own sound of equal parts groan and sigh, he bent down to pick up a stack of scrap wood, cardboard, and trash and deposited it into the can, knowing anything he did now, even on the way out, he'd be thankful he didn't have to do later. The large, dark space had become like a labyrinth of displacement, and he had been making collections of tools and like items. A frustrating tangle of growing decisions on what he would keep and what he would throw away and what he would offer neighbors, both here and at home, was overwhelming, and with another yawn and stretch, he reached for the pull chain on the overhead light. He whipped his head in the direction of the skin-crawling scurry of the interloping rodent, squinted into the dim light at the base of the wall, trying to analyze the shape of the darkness below the metal shelves, but saw nothing. He walked up and kicked the leg of one of the shelves with the toe of his boot and waited for a reaction, but there was none. Then, realizing he wasn't sure what he'd hoped would happen, disgusted at the thought of something coming running out, he sighed, shook his head, and flipped the wall switch, dampening the remainder of dim lights. He headed for his trailer to close it for transport. There was still so much room left inside, he'd wished he'd made a bigger effort to fill it to offset the cost of gas. He chewed on his lip for a moment, staring at the empty space, thinking. He turned back suddenly and moved quickly with little consideration. He flipped the lights on again and stepped back in front of the tightly packed floor-to-ceiling file boxes. Identical, unlabeled, side by side, and top to bottom. Now that they'd had his attention, he could see there were far more of them than he previously realized, blending in with the dingy lime wash. Without bothering to look inside, he impatiently cleared one of the shelves, moved the boxes onto the trailer, then closed and locked the door. He had trash disposal and a burn bin at his own home, so he could sort the contents there. Now at the age where he'd learned to work with his mind rather than his back, he'd be saving himself some trouble taking them along. Then he could finish the rest another time. He glanced around the room once more, looking to see if there were even more shelves he'd managed not to notice, for how many times he'd passed by those without seeing them but saw none, and now, satisfied with the fill of the trailer and the small dent of endless work he'd managed that day, again exited. He rubbed his stiff hands together, chilly air needling at his joints, as he closed and locked the garage doors. Beyond the trailer sat his station wagon. He could hear the sound of before he could see them. He tracked them as they raced around with the light, a joyful and imaginative tumble with pantomime sword fighting sound effects from the masters, their favorite cartoon. All eyes included many paper the part neither child wanted to play, but all supposed. For a moment to watch, his wife perched on the hook car as they were ready and about his presence, sliding off jeans as he passed, letting himself starting the car. The children knew this as their cue to stop their play and give the car a wide berth as Annabelle moved beside the trailer's hitch and guided him in as he backed towards it to make the connection. "Can I do the brakes, Dad?" Danny, his eldest son, shouted as Brady exited the car. "Dad, I want to do the brakes." "You won't be able to reach. You can do the signals," Danny informed his younger brother. "Dad, can I do the brakes and Jamie do the signals?" "Hop in," Brady told them, and they went as he went for the back of the car, and they sprinted for the driver's seat. Danny helping his brother scramble inside, they took their position. "Brakes," he called up to them after making the connection, stepping back to monitor the taillights on the trailer. "Left," he then called out, gave them a moment to squabble about which was left. "Right," he called again, and after they'd figured it out, "All good," he announced for their benefit. "Anybody got a pee?" Annabelle asked. "Last call." "I don't," Jamie called back. "Let's go anyway," Danny told him. "Okay, but we got a race." "Okay, Dad." "What?" Brady mimicked. Count us down for a race." They chose just a starting point at the front of the car as Brady headed back to the driver's seat. "On your marks," he said mechanically. "Get set." He sat down without finishing the instructions. "You have to say go," Danny yelled at him. "You have to tell us to go," Jamie echoed, both very sure he needed their help to clarify the rules. They loudly repeated themselves and then started to walk towards the car to tell him up close before he stuck his head out the window and plainly said, "Go," sending them into a mad dash towards the house. Okay, that's good. I think that's a couple of pages there for you. Okay, I'm being told I was breaking up. Sorry about that. I hope not. Um, that that gives you a little bit of the insight into my style and where things are going, and what's going to happen. So that's what that's what I do. But I don't want to go very much further than that because, like I said, if I'd have read something more like action packed, then that would have really given something away that I don't really want to give away at this point, because everything cascades in a point of this person introduces the next person, or the next event is on the next thing. And then I was talking to Jared before the show, and he was like, I'm up at the point where this thing is happening, and it's like, oh yeah, great, like no bad can come of that. Like, so like he was definitely connecting with the story as well. And I think it's funny. It was really making me laugh because that is true. It's like, what are these people getting into? What are they up to? What is this? And I've gotten some feedback about, like, because again, there's a set of college students in the 1975 storyline. You could know this, and then the family that I was just reading about, Brady, is in the 1985 storyline, and that's the present from where the story is told. So you will get the chance to read and be invested in both storylines at both times throughout. So it's kind of a two stories in one scenario, and then you ultimately find out where it breaks. The 75 timeline breaks into Brady's 85 timeline, and what all happens and how they end up connected to each other, and what ultimately happens and what's going on. But if I tell you one thing, then it's going to mess up getting to explore and figure it out on your own, which is something I really want you to do, because I think that if you read it and you look at, like, you're suspicious of everything, then you're going to look at it more critically and be like, oh, was that a clue? And then maybe you like remember something that you read like a couple of chapters back, and you're like, holy shit, that was a clue. Like, that's what's going on here. And I've gotten some feedback about how the characters are pretty likable. Like the people enjoy like how they are and think that they're neat or cool. But I kind of come from a point of view of the things that they get into. Now this is something I do get tired of seeing, like occult shaming, or like like people who get invested in like anything that's not the mainstream, like tarot or astrology, or like, oh well, they obviously got what they deserved then because they were fucking with shit they didn't know about. Like, no, that's not what's going on here. Like, they're not like it's not meant to be like you're punished because you have broken the rules of our Christian society. No, but it does say the characters who are invested in paranormal research, the students, and they are living in a place which is fictional, but it's based on a real place. It's called Morning Star. It's a college town, but it's based on Sleepy Hollow, which is a part of Tarrytown, New York, which is a real place. It was a real place where our first real American story comes out of, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. And that was a big inspiration to this too, because when you get into places in that New England world, and you can look into movies and things like this, that like Sleepy Hollow is a big catch for things going on. It was a Dutch colonial community, older than America basically. And then, there's places like Salem, Massachusetts. And then you start thinking about like, okay, like movies like The Witch or movies like Blair Witch Project. It's like, they're all kind of connected into this American origin story, right? And then like where literally if you left the colony for any reason, you were going into the wilderness and literally anything could happen to you, and nobody had a really fundamental grasp about medicine or science or the world in those ancient times. So it was much scarier. But that legacy somewhat persisted onto people. So when you're reading about Morning Star, that is really directly meant to be an allusion to Sleepy Hollow and the legend of Sleepy Hollow and the history of those early colonies and things like that, and what happened, and the dangers that they faced, whether perceived or real. So and then that's part of the issue too of confusion and scariness. Sometimes you just don't know what to be afraid of. Like, yeah, there are witches in these woods, probably, who the hell knows, right? So like that, like, not necessarily knowing what to be afraid of when not your biggest likely the thing that's going to kill you is disease or injury or if you maraud onto some indigenous people's lands or something like that. That's more likely like what you're going to face. But they were afraid of like everything, and why wouldn't you be? You came on a boat, you survived that somehow, and now if you're out there in the wilderness, like you don't know what's out there. And that whole aura of what is kind of what I'm trying to portray in this story. So you end up in the student timeline seeing a group of students who are invested in ghost hunting and paranormal studies, paranormal research, that kind of thing, and not in a silly way, but in a scientific type of a way. Let's plug my camera in here quick. This is going dead. But they're invested in a scientific kind of a way. They want to take it seriously. They're trying to take it seriously. They're trying to make sure that anything that they do or learn or find out on their investigations has a scientific legitimacy to it. And then this is something you started to see in the 1970s as well, as people started to put a more scientific spin on paranormal research, because again, you started to have video equipment and recording equipment at your disposal. So people were taking it much more seriously in this time, and they see this as their way to look at this in a scientific and legitimizing type of a way, right? So they're not, anything that happens to them is not punishment for like occultism. And then again, that comes from my own life. I have been a paranormal researcher since like the age of 10. Like that is like my whole life. It's ingrained. I do astrology. I do tarot. It's my whole thing. I love it. It's fun. It's interesting. I could talk your ear off about it. Someday there might be like some textbook type stuff that comes out about that. I don't really, have a firm plan on that now. But that is where that comes from. So it does come from some stuff in my life, and what I know, and about what, scientific methods and things like this, and how to bring that into a real story in a real way, based on what they had at their disposal, not up to modern standards, but in 1975 standards. Plus, also, at the same time, you are starting to see horror culture begin in earnest. That year, 2 years before that, in 73, is when The Exorcist came out, and that was like the first big horror movie. And in 1975, that year, Jaws came out, and that was like the first big blockbuster movie. Period. So whether it was horror or whatever it was about, that really got people invested in the getting scared for fun thing. Not that it didn't exist; it's always existed, but that was where it was really reeling people in mass. So the investigations and the research they're doing, they're trying to make it look like there's nothing to be afraid of. We want to explain this phenomena and say like, oh, actually you have an electrical problem or a water leak is causing this. There's no real haunting here, such and such and such. And so that they start to kind of get into that whole thing where they that's like their whole agenda of what they're doing. But they ultimately take it in a direction that ultimately proves pretty problematic. And something about this group, a couple of comments that I've seen and responded to and talked about, it's like, first of all, yeah, it's a very monocultural group of people in this. It's very white. Let me be clear. If I want to say it in plain terms, it's very white. There's no characters of color in this, because again, there's a couple things going on for reasons, or like historical reasons. First of all, it was the middle 70s, and they're in a pretty college town that's like an arts college type of a pretty white scenario there, right? A private arts college. So you have that already in this situation. Also, historically, at that time in the middle 70s is when busing went nationwide in the country. And what that means is, which it means nothing to us now, but originally when that started, it was a national movement that was made and put into law, where there had been, consistently throughout the country, there'd be white, well-performing schools, and there'd be black schools that were very low-performing, like no money, like treated very badly, bad education, and they were, unsurprisingly, getting the short end of the stick. So the solution to that was to yes, schools were integrated. That was happening since like the 60s, but they were still culturally pulling apart from each other, especially in the New England setting. That was very divisive place in particular. And you can see documentaries about it. You can read about it. I know people who were part of this directly in their areas of the country who were, in this situation. But effectively what happened is it created a gigantic culture shock for most especially white people, because they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start a busing program. It's going to go nationwide. The government did this, where we integrate the schools back and forth. We don't worry about who's where and what's where, but some of the white students are going to go to the black schools, and some of the black students are going to go to the white schools. And that's going to even out the playing field of like have not, and well performing versus poor performing. That's going to ultimately even things out. And it did, and it does. And we live in a world now where we don't even think about that stuff for the most part. So it was a good move. It was a good move, but there was a whole bunch of pushback. There were literally battles in the streets over this. There were riots about this. White people did not take it well. And that's, again, you started to see a lot of white flight happen during this time as well, because they left the cities, their cities schools, and went to, more suburban schools. You also saw a large uptick in white students going to Catholic schools, because those were considered private, and so they were not they were exempt from having to abide by any kind of busing regulation or government regulation. So you saw a lot of people really heavily resistant to this. And just in general, racial integration on like a smaller level was not super ingrained at that point. Like, you basically, people ran, they just were not looking to race mix. There were still very high racial tensions, and then this what that was going on made it very especially tense going on, right? So I'm not saying that these characters were racist. What I am saying is that they don't have any other outside perspective about life or culture except for their own. And if they had done, they might have learned more about why they, what they should be messing with and what they shouldn't be, because they could have had an outside perspective. So that is something I definitely want to be taken away from it. And it's not meant to be, it's not meant to look like, oh, this story is all white people only, and but this is like white ignorance, quite honestly, is what happens to them and what they get involved in and what they do. Because had they had some other sort of, maybe some sort of other influence on their life, or had heard a different perspective outside of their own echo chamber, maybe that, that wouldn't have happened. What happens to them wouldn't have happened. So, and again, you do get that those tensions do ease up in the 85 timeline. But again, Brady and his family are suburbanites. They really just don't have a lot of exposure in that way. So if you're wondering where the people of color are, they're just not intentionally in this, because that, I think, would add too much insight that the characters need to like wallow in their own ignorance, essentially. And some people have told me about that they really like the student characters, and they like Brady and his family, but in the student characters have these neat different kind of attributes about them and things that brought them together, and what's going on with them. So when bad things happen, like, they feel bad, and it's like, okay, well, I come at them from a more morally gray point of view, where they're not, as I see it, super good people. And not like a get what you deserve type of a scenario, but like, they're not, I just don't necessarily see them in that same light. You can look at them however you want to. I think that's interesting that people have thought that they have been, neat or interesting or fascinating characters, where I look at them as more as like, questionable. Let me say that. Like, and so that from me, my point of view is you might find them cool or interesting, but like, for me, they're like not. they're kind of bad news. So that I don't think is going to spoil too much, but I would like you to look at it like, from the way that I wrote it, is for that to be a little more openly interpreted. If you think that they are good people, they can be good people. If you think that they're bad people, or that nobody's all the way good or all the way bad, that's totally up to you. So That's where that is. And I thought about doing character profiles. A lot of writers do that, especially independent writers, or they ask their fans like that they already have or their fan base or whoever their readers, like, hey, throw me some fan art. You know, like, what are you thinking? What do you think this person looks like? How do you think they are? What do you think these things mean? I don't really want to do that. I've gone back and forth on it because, so that's successful for some people, but I don't want to. Like I said, it characters in this story kind of, you meet them in a cascading way. You see how they interweave into each other's lives and timelines, and if I start picking those things out, it's going to ultimately start, giving things away about the story, which I don't want to do. You those are things and connections I think that you're going to have to make up on your own. But again, if you get down the road and you make a fan art or you make a fan fiction or something like that and you want me to share it, hit me up and I'll share it for sure. I'm totally cool with it. Another thing, and I told you earlier a couple times, I think, that I embed clues into everything. That even goes for character naming. I'm very particular about character naming anyways. I have like conventions of how I do it. I've got spreadsheets and stuff of what I've used, when I've used it, how to reuse something. I like this, I don't like this. This works for this period. It doesn't, I use era specific names and a lot of things. Because I write other period pieces. I'm not just a horror writer. I write multi-genre, and I've got more stuff coming up, which I'll touch on here in 1 second. But if you start going through the names of things, not all of them, but some of them have connections to other things and refer to other things, and even minor characters in some cases. So you can look into that and see if you find out anything or figure anything out or make any connections. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it for sure. That is a part of it too. And you can look into anything that you think might be something, like I like, to hear your thoughts on it for sure. But that is basically like, what's going on here. So that's, you just look for clues, enjoy it, and get down the road with it and see what you think, whether or not you feel like the characters are good people or bad people. I heard somebody told me recently they'd hope to see a sequel to this. I do have an idea for a sequel, but I don't have a firm plan to bring that to fruition. Maybe down the road. I've got a really full production queue as things are right now. So it depends on what everybody thinks and feels about it. I would need some pretty significant feedback on that before I went down that road and made time to do it. I think it's a pretty strong story, but I don't really know if I want to do it, because I might have it, to stand on its own 2 feet. Because now that it does, and this is the kind of story that really has legs. It can walk, and it's really good. I think because you get so much out of it. You get to kind of interact with it, both with the soundtrack and any kind of clue pulling that you get. And really just kind of get into the period pieces of that and the era of that, and the culture of that. If you know me from the show, I'm basically a historian. I'm a history fan, so I'm very acutely aware of how these different eras worked, what was available to them. So I really want to put you in to the world of, like what it was like to live in those eras, and not mix it up with future current modern stuff. So you can really, really dive into the period piece aspect of that. So, that being said, here it is again. I'll show you the physical copy. I know it's backwards, but this is what it looks like. And it's about that thick. In this paper version, it comes out to, let's see, 425 pages. And the digital, I think, is around 330, something like that. So that's just because it's a wider format. And again, if you want a copy or you can't afford a copy, get in touch with me and I will send you one. No big deal like there at all. If you got one copy, it's yours to have and share and do with what you like. If there's anything you make from it or talk about it or thoughts you have about it, send it to me and I will just or tag me somewhere to let me know that I can share it, and that's what you want me to do. And if you have read it or you're planning on reading it, please leave me an Amazon review on the page. I really, really need that so that the algorithms pick up on that it should be in front of other people who I'm not reaching, who don't know me, who've never heard of me. So that will really, really help me be able to continue to write books and not like be homeless. So if you could help me with that, I'd love that, because I can give you something in return, if you know, and I can give you some time, something to enjoy, hopefully, and we can talk about it and do that kind of thing. So upcoming, I have a couple of things in the pipeline. Because that took years and years to get through, to finally get this out there, and it's a little discombobulating for me because it's like, oh, it's finally out there. Oh my god! So and I don't work on it anymore. That's over. But I do have several other things in the pipeline coming up. I've got some different stuff you'll be hearing about as it comes together more, because things aren't really in a super good fit just yet. I will have a sequel to Another New World, the Buster book coming out, but it's going to be like a picture book, like a coffee table book, where I've assembled a lot of pictures from private archives, from people's collections that knew him, as well as some rare pictures, and it's basically his entire life. And I will be adding. They're going to be presented in sort of a picture book style, with some facts and some little artworks and things like that going on. So I do have more Buster stuff coming out for the Buster fans out there. Don't have any Tia yet, but that will be coming out. And it will be basically a sequel to that, but just not like a literary book, more like a picture coffee table book type of a thing. And then in terms of literary stuff coming out, I have another project that I've been working on even longer than The Big Bad Wolf. And it's called Fields of Gold. And it's meant to be a universe. And it's for all intents and purposes, it's a Western, but it's really not a Western. It's more like an American adventure type of a thing. And that's going to be really, really big and really encompassing, and tons of characters and a lot of things going on, and like migratory stuff and meeting things and doing things and action. A lot of stuff. Something I've been trying to write for a really long time. I have a draft of it. I looked at it a little bit. It looks good. I can't wait to work with it. So I will have that coming out. I've got some projects that yet to be named that are going to bring together my artwork and my writing. So there will be some of that coming up that you can look forward to. I've got a lot of a very, very long working list of things. I've got, mystery stories in the works, like criminal type of stuff, like true crime type of stuff. Not like a true crime literally, but like I've got that going on. I've got just so many things, other horror potential for and then like just out of this is a kind of a dramedy. This is my first book. I did write this in haste. I wrote it many years ago, so this may have some errors in it, but I wrote this many years ago, and then really wanted to test out the whole publishing scenario and see about it and get into it. So that is not necessarily like how my modern books are, but that's just kind of like a fun story if you want just something fun and chill and kind of neat thing going on. So there's that. So that brings you kind of up to speed on what's going on. Check in the chat. Yeah, says Time Traveler says, yeah, I know. Nathan says I was breaking up. I know. Sorry about that. Time Traveler says, so scary. The book, Big Bad Wolf. Shine. Yeah, no, that's not really in part of this. And then they're a Buster fan. So yeah. So if you're a Buster fan, I got stuff coming up. If you're a comedy fan, I got stuff coming up. If you're mysteries, I got stuff coming up. Horror, I got stuff coming up. I got stuff in many different genres, oftentimes period pieces, because I think not only is it fun for me to write, from my use my historical knowledge for something, I think a lot of people gravitate towards period pieces just to kind of get away from how things are now. Even this, when I wrote this originally, I wrote this probably early 20 teens, I'd say, or maybe a little before that. So this kind of actually reads like a period piece because it's kind of set in the 2012, 2013-ish, a pre-pandemic. And I know a lot of people are really like just eager to kind of escape into something that like used to be when it's so much easier that way. But that's where we are. So thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. Again, Jared and I have been talking about maybe we do some of these extra streams every now and again of just some other stuff to kind of lighten things up. He might want to do some reading some of his mark studies. He's our scholar, so he might want to do some reading and some talking about that kind of thing. And again, we like to take your questions and comments on air. So if he's doing a reading and you got a question, throw it at him. He wants to hear it. So you got, we don't know. He's got a super packed schedule all the time. He's going to be in Guadalajara, Mexico in the next couple of days doing shows. So he's a world traveler for sure. So we will find out if we can kind of mix our schedules together a little bit and get in on some of this stuff. And sometimes maybe we'll just come to you and talk about whatever our projects are. If he's got a new album, or he'll maybe play some music from it. So we're talking about it. No promises yet. It's just sort of a kernel of an idea. But that being said, I do intend to have more books coming at a fairly regular rate from here on out. If you will follow me and us on socials everywhere, we're everywhere. It really just helps me be able to get the message to you if you want to hear it. If you do Goodreads, I'm on Goodreads. I don't really use it for anything, but it's there. And please, if you read it or get a copy, please leave me an Amazon review. Because again, that will put it in front of people who don't know me and haven't seen it and that kind of a thing. And I think I'm freezing up again here. So it's probably a good time for me to say my goodbyes. I want to see if my screen goes back to normal before I actually do it. Woo. Come on now. Yeah. Okay, because sometimes it looks crazy to me, and it'll lose fidelity, and then it'll speed up real fast. So okay, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off here. Thanks for hanging out with me. You can find me everywhere. I'm everywhere. And connect with me if you want updates on everything. I've got a few more surprises about the release and some things going on. So connect with me, connect with us. And we will see you again next week for our regularly scheduled show. And we're going to be talking about having some extra content going on, maybe. And if you got some thoughts on that, and if you want to encourage us into doing some stuff, you can. If you got questions, comments, throw them our way. So take care, everybody. Take care of each other, and happy spooky season. So ta-ta.